Hey y'all, thanks again for helping me reach and blow past 1,000 subscribers. This is your 1,000 subscriber special, where I'll be going over several x-rays of Alibaba clone paddles that I've reviewed in the past, and comparing them to x-rays of the original Joola versions. I have a friend who has a lot of expertise in x-ray imaging, and they kindly offered to help x-ray these paddles for me. Alright, so let's start with the Alibaba Mod TA15 clones. I purchased two mod clones from the seller Changsha Yide late last year and played with both of them for about a month. I posted a review on them as well that I'll link. In summary, one of the clones, which I'll call Mod Clone 1, from the moment I started using it, it instantly felt and sounded like there was an issue with it. The sound of the paddle as it hit the ball sounded way deeper than the Joola mod. The second mod clone, which I'll call Mod Clone 2, was much more controllable in contrast, and was comparable in power and sound to the Joola mod. After my video was released, I did feel like the Mod Clone 2 was getting a bit hotter and poppier, but it was hard to tell for sure because it also felt like the Joola mod was getting hotter and poppier as well. Here's the sound test from my review video if you missed it, and you'll hear what I mean. Let's put the two mod clone x-rays side by side and examine them. The instant I saw these x-rays, it confirmed my suspicions about Mod Clone 1. If you look at the edge foam that's injected to create the Gen 3 floating core effect, it's obvious that Mod Clone 1 has uneven foam added to the right side of the paddle compared to Mod Clone 2. You can see that the honeycomb cells around the extra foam has been completely core crushed. Now, it is common for Gen 3 paddles, clone or not, to core crush first from the edges where the foam is, and also eventually the center cells. Often, it's not even the player that causes it, but rather it happens during the manufacturing process. This happens because the material is initially made larger than the 16mm mold of the paddle, and then it is compressed downwards when finalizing the production. I'll link a PBStudio podcast that talks about this in more detail. That aside, what stands out is that Mod Clone 1 clearly is core crushed all around and not just near the edges. It's likely, though I can't confirm for sure, that this paddle was already core crushed like this when I received it, and playing with it made it even worse. Taking a look at Mod Clone 2, you see that the foam is much more even around the edges, and the core crushing generally seems to be only at the edges. The center of the paddle does show some deformation of the cells, which probably explains the paddle feeling hotter as it's in the beginning stages of core crushing, but in my experience from playing with it regularly for a month, is that it still felt similar to the Joola mod and it didn't feel like or sound like it was core crushed, at least definitely not like the Mod Clone 1 was. You know how there's always those annoying pickleball players that always blame their paddle instead of themselves? Well, this time it really was the paddle, and I got the x-ray to prove it.
Previous game.
Now, ideally, I'd like to compare Mod Clone 2 to the actual Joola mods, but unfortunately, I returned my Joola mod in December when the upcoming USAP delisting was announced, as did many people I know. I did have access to a Joola Gen 3 Perseus, one of the original Gen 3 paddles that was banned in only a month after a launch. Joola claims that this paddle is materially and structurally the same as the Mod TA15, but USAP in their latest lawsuit has some x-ray evidence that they're not. I'll use this x-ray in comparison to the Mod Clone 2, but with a huge caveat that the Joola Gen 3 may not accurately represent the Joola Mod TA15. This Joola Gen 3 was also played with regularly for about a month. The first thing I notice is that while the foam width is basically the same for both paddles, the density of the foam is way higher in the clone, as shown by the x-ray not being able to see through the foam and show the cells underneath. The next thing I notice is that the Joola Gen 3's cells seem to be structurally more intact than the Mod Clone 2. Now, that may lead you to conclude that the Joola paddles are less likely to core crush than the clones. While I think that's a decent possibility, I don't think there's enough data to conclude that for sure. The Joola Gen 3s and Mod TA15s have a documented history of core crushing themselves within a short time. PBStudio talks about it on their podcast. The same friend that loaned me this Joola Gen 3 Perseus also used the Joola Gen 3 Magnus for about the same amount of time, and look what happened to it in just a month of play. It's also possible I just got unlucky and got a poor quality paddle from the seller, or possibly that a different seller may have produced better clones, or just that with the first attempt at Gen 3 floating core technology, no manufacturer, Joola partnered or not, would create long-lasting paddles. Anyways, that's it for the mod clones. Time to move on to the Perseus Pro 4 clone. I made a full review video for this clone, which I'll also link. I ran a blind playtest where 2 of my friends played with the paddles and swapped and had to guess which one was the Joola paddle and which one was the clone. If you haven't seen it and don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you pause the video now and go watch the review. In summary, both players chose the clone paddle as their preferred paddle, and both incorrectly guessed that the clone paddle was the actual Joola paddle. This clone came from the seller Dongguan Yiheng. I want to give a quick update for those of you that missed it, that the seller actually reached out to me after seeing the review. I let them know that the most common piece of feedback was around what graphics they used on the paddle. They acknowledged that feedback and recently launched both blank, zero graphic, as well as their own branding versions of this clone. Going forward, I will be looking to only link to clone paddles that are blank-faced or seller branded to ensure every buyer knows that they are not purchasing an original Joola paddle. The paddles are also not approved for tournament play at this time. I am a general Alibaba affiliate, and any purchase made after clicking on my links may generate proceeds to help support this channel. Now, finally, let's take a look at the X-rays. I've put both the Alibaba Pro 4 clone and the Joola Pro 4 X-rays side by side. Both paddles have been played with for only about a week when the X-rays were taken. Now, before I reveal which one is which, please take the time to subscribe and like the video if this has been informative or helpful for you. I have the Joola Pro 4 on the left and the Alibaba clone on the right. My instant thought is close, but not the same. The thing that's the closest is the edge foam. The edge foam looks to be about the same width and density, maybe slightly more width and density for the Joola. The first major difference I notice is that the foam at the throat of the paddle has a more tapered shape for the Joola Pro 4. In contrast, the foam at the throat of the clone extends out more towards the center of the paddle. The foam here is a new addition to the Pro 4s compared to the mod, and is supposed to increase stability and dwell time. However, despite the difference in the shape of the foam used here, none of my playtesters noticed the difference in stability or dwell. Now, as for the cells, what surprised me a bit was the Clone Pro 4 seemed to have slightly healthier cells than the Joola. I wouldn't describe the Joola Pro 4 cells as unhealthy, but some of the cells do appear to be slightly deformed based on the X-ray. These X-ray results are similar to the ones from John Q's podcast, which inspired this video. His clone also had healthier looking cells than compared to the Joola. In contrast to both mine and John Q's X-rays, Pickleball Medicine actually cut open some of his Alibaba clone paddles to reveal that the clones actually had some evidence of pre-compressed cores, whereas the Joola didn't. It's possible X-rays don't show the whole story, or that there's just a lot of variation within and between sellers. I don't know which sellers John Q and Pickleball Medicine got their clones from, but if either of you are watching this, please feel free to reach out to my Instagram at dypickleball and let's compare notes. Finally, one thing that my friend who X-rayed the paddle noticed is that the clone's handle appears to be more structurally sound, which shows up in the X-ray as more density. This doesn't necessarily mean the Joola has a poorly built handle, since you don't really hear about paddles breaking at the handle much anymore. So after reviewing all these X-rays and data points from other reviewers, there's clearly a lot of variation in the quality of Alibaba clone paddles. While the clones often play similarly to the Joolas, it's not always clear what the durability will be in the long run. Given the construction, I am more hopeful for the Pro 4 clones compared to the mod clones. If you look at incentives, Joola does have more incentive to ensure their paddles last longer due to their 6-month warranty, whereas Alibaba only has a 30-day guarantee. I don't know if that actually translates to different durability, but it will be something I look out for and will update you all as much as I can. For myself, the price point of the clones make it so that I'm willing to take the chance. Even factoring costs like tariffs, I can purchase 6 clones for just under what it would cost me to purchase one Joola paddle. I find it extremely unlikely that I would core crush through all 6 clones in the same time I core crush through a Joola paddle, but not everyone wants to deal with changing paddles and dealing with warranties, so it's understandable to go with the Joola paddle instead and avoid that potential hassle. As I've said in my previous video, the Joola reputation, warranty, and tournament approval are 3 big reasons to forego the cheaper clones, and you have to decide for yourself what it's worth to you. A few commenters even brought up the idea of using clones as a demo or practice paddle, and then using the Joola paddles for sanctioned tournaments, which I thought was a great idea for some people. Finally, there have been some rumors that these sellers are just taking actual Joola paddles from the same manufacturer and just reselling them for cheap. I find that highly unlikely given the x-rays show the construction is not the same. Instead, it seems more likely these sellers and manufacturers are simply trying to recreate the performance of the Joola paddles with their own design and construction at a lower price point. Thank you all for patiently waiting for this 1,000 subscriber special. It's been an awesome journey to explore affordable paddles with you all. Be sure to like and subscribe if this was informative or helpful to you. See you all next time.